decades. Joyful laughter turned into screams of terror as a brave woman, Luna Maya, tried to challenge the mystical aura all by herself. However, unexpectedly, Luna's presence awakened the wrath of an unseen force, dragging her into a terrifying spiritual experience that pushed her to the edge of her consciousness. Before we continue, let us recite a prayer, Shalawat, for the Prophet Muhammad. May this prayer be a witness to our goodness on the Day of Judgment. Your support by liking and subscribing to this channel means a great deal in spreading the message of Islam and becomes a continuous act of charity. The story begins as Luna Maya dared to enter the rusty gates of the haunted villa. That night, the wind blew colder than usual on the slopes of Mount Bromo. Luna Maya stood frozen before a tall iron gate, most of which had been consumed by rust. Before her stood a magnificent old European-style building, Villa Bromo. Its white paint had peeled away, leaving behind dull walls that seemed to have 1,000 unseen eyes watching her. For 20 years, this villa had been empty, a silent witness to the tragedy that befell its owners. Holding her camera, Luna took a deep breath. She had come alone, a reckless decision driven by overwhelming curiosity. The word-of-mouth tales of this place's haunted reputation were the very magnet that drew her in. With all her might, she pushed the gate, which let out a long, heartbreaking screech, like the groan of a disturbed spirit. The moment her foot stepped past the gate, the air felt heavier, more suffocating. A musty, damp smell stung her nose. The once lively chirping of crickets suddenly fell silent. There was only a strange quiet, a silence that felt more alive than any crowd. Luna turned on her camera's light, shining it on a path littered with dry leaves. In the distance, she could see a small building separate from the main house, an old church that looked just as terrifying. She decided to explore the main building first. Every step felt heavy as if something was holding her back, preventing her from stepping deeper into the villa's dark embrace. Luna stepped slowly onto the cracked marble terrace. The main door, made of sturdy teakwood, was slightly ajar. Carefully she pushed it. The dry hinges once again let out a louder creak, echoing throughout the room as if announcing the arrival of an uninvited guest. The light from her camera danced inside the vast main lobby. Thick dust flew through the air, sparkling like magic powder in the beam of light. Large, classic European furniture was still neatly arranged, but everything was covered in white cloths that had now turned gray with dust and time. The atmosphere was so quiet, a chilling silence. Luna could hear her own heart pounding. She tried to talk to her camera, attempting to break the silence and calm herself down. Okay guys, I'm inside the main building now. The aura is completely different. It feels so heavy, she whispered. She walked past the lobby toward a long, dark hallway. On the left and right sides of the hall were several closed bedroom doors. Luna felt the hair on her neck stand up. It wasn't because of the cold, but because of a strange feeling that suddenly emerged. The feeling that she was not alone. She felt a pair of eyes watching her from a dark corner at the end of the hall. She pointed her camera there, but only found a large painting of a European woman with an empty gaze. Suddenly, from one of the rooms on her right, she heard a soft scratching sound, like the sound of nails being dragged across a wooden surface. Her steps halted. She held her breath, trying to sharpen her hearing. The sound was gone. Luna tried to convince herself it was just a mouse or some other animal nesting in the empty house. She continued more cautiously this time. But after just a few steps, she heard another sound. This time it was clearer. The sound of a woman humming softly. The melody was so sad and heart-wrenching it sent shivers down her spine. The sound felt incredibly close, as if the source was right behind her ear. Luna whipped around, shining her flashlight down the dark hallway behind her. It was empty. There was no one there. But the soft humming continued, now seemingly moving away, toward one of the rooms at the end of the hall. Her heart pounded, torn between fear and curiosity. She decided not to follow the sound. Her sense of caution heightened. She felt something was toying with her, luring her deeper into its trap. She turned back and walked quickly out of the main building. She was out of breath as if she had just run from something unseen. The cold night air was a relief to her lungs, which had been tight with dust and tension. She looked toward the second building she had seen earlier, the old church. For some reason, her feet felt drawn to it. Perhaps inside a house of worship, she would feel safer. It was a naive thought she would soon regret. The church door was unlocked. Inside, several rows of long wooden pews looked weathered with age. At the front, a simple altar stood with a large cross hanging on the back wall. Moonlight filtering through the tall stained glass windows cast strange shadows across the room, making it look like a portal to another dimension. The atmosphere felt sacred, yet strange. Luna walked slowly down the center aisle, her camera continuously recording every corner. She tried to calm herself by making a joke. This place is actually nice. Maybe if it were cleaned up, it could be used for a unique wedding, she quipped with a small, forced laugh, more for her own benefit. Silence. No response. Luna smiled in relief. She continued toward the altar. She was just about to touch the dusty surface of the altar table when a sound suddenly broke the silence. Not a hum, not a whisper. It was the sound of a woman's laughter, shrill and full of mockery. The laughter echoed throughout the empty church, seemingly mocking the joke she had just made. It came from all directions, leaving her unsure of where to turn. The laughter stopped as quickly as it started, leaving a silence 1,000 times more terrifying. Luna's body froze in place, her eyes wide with horror. Every cell in her body screamed for her to run, to get out of this cursed place and never look back. But something held her there. An unseen force, a mixture of an explorer's curiosity and a strange pull from the villa's dark energy. It was as if this place wasn't finished with her yet. With a trembling hand, she gripped her camera tighter. It was her only shield and witness. "Whoever you are, show yourself," she said, her voice trembling, sounding more like a plea than a challenge. There was no answer. Only the night wind rustling again through the broken windows. Luna knew she couldn't stay in the church any longer. The feeling of being watched grew stronger. She stepped back slowly, her eyes never leaving the dark altar, before finally turning and half-running out of the church. Now she stood in the central courtyard, between the main building and the church. But there was one more building that caught her eye. A smaller structure at the very back of the property, which looked the oldest and most neglected. From the stories she had heard, that back building was the epicenter of all the mystical activity in the villa. It was said that the building was once the practice of a traditional midwife. Dark stories circulated about innocent fetuses whose fates ended there, buried without a name in the backyard. The place was a magnet for wandering spirits. A powerful urge she couldn't explain made her walk toward it. The closer she got to the building, the more she felt an incredibly dense aura. It was no longer a cold feeling, but a strange heat. Her chest began to feel tight, making it difficult to breathe. A deep sense of sadness and anger suddenly enveloped her heart, emotions she was sure were not her own. It was as if the building's walls were radiating all the suffering that had ever occurred within them. She now stood right in front of the building's rotting wooden door, feeling a wave of intense hatred from behind it. With a hand that felt heavier than before, Luna pushed the door of the back building. Inside, there was only one small, stuffy room. There was no furniture, just a rickety wooden table in the middle. The floor was made of packed earth, and in several corners, there were strange little mounds. This was where all the negative energy was centered. An overwhelming feeling of anger and sadness invaded her consciousness, making her dizzy and nauseous. She felt like she was about to cry for no reason. "I know you're in here," Luna said, her voice hoarse. "I don't mean to disturb you. I just want to know." Silence. But this silence felt different. It was heavy and threatening. Luna felt frustrated. The emotions that weren't hers began to take over. A burning rage made her do something beyond her control. She saw a small rock on the floor, and with an angry kick, she sent it flying against the opposite wall. "Answer, Emmy," she screamed. Instantly, the temperature in the room dropped drastically. From the darkest corner of the room, untouched by her flashlight's beam, something moved. The camera she was holding managed to capture a split second of the movement. A white, woman-shaped shadow seemed to shoot out from the corner, flying directly toward her. At the same moment, Luna felt an excruciating pain, as if an ice-cold blade had stabbed her right in the center of her chest. The pain was so real and agonizing. Her breath caught in her throat. She staggered backward, her hands clutching her chest. Her vision began to blur. The camera slipped from her grasp, falling to the dirt floor with a soft thud. Its lens was now pointed upward, recording Luna's pale, sweat-drenched face, her eyes wide with terror before they finally closed and her body collapsed to the floor. The room fell silent again, leaving only the sound of strange, heavy breathing that did not belong to Luna Maya. The camera on the dirt floor kept recording. For a few moments nothing moved. Only darkness and silence. Then, slowly, Luna's still body began to move. Not the movements of someone regaining consciousness, but horrifying, jerky motions, like a puppet whose strings were being pulled by an unseen master. With a single sharp movement, Luna's body sat bolt upright. Her head lolled to the side before slowly lifting. Her eyes opened, but they were no longer Luna's eyes. The look of curiosity or fear was gone. In its place was a cold, empty, and hateful stare. Her pale lips curved into a thin, utterly unwelcoming smile. Pausing for a moment, the head turned left and right, observing the room as if seeing it for the first time through human eyes. Then, from Luna's lips, a voice emerged. A hoarse, deep, and completely different voice. It spoke in a formal, high Javanese dialect, thick with emphasis. "How dare you come to my place? Disturbing the peace I have long enjoyed," the voice said. Luna's body stood up with an unnatural motion. It walked toward the camera lying on the floor, then crouched down. Her face now filled the entire screen. The empty gaze seemed to pierce through the lens, staring directly at anyone watching this recording. "You think I am a spirit from this house? Well, I am the guardian of this forest. This place is now my palace," the voice continued with a threatening tone. "And you, arrogant human, have awakened me with your filthy energy." The entity using Luna's body laughed. The same laughter Luna had heard in the church. Shrill, cold, and triumphant. Suddenly the laughter stopped. The face became flat and cold again. "Leave, or you will never be able to return. This body will be mine forever." After uttering those final words, Luna's body convulsed violently. Her eyes rolled back until only the whites were visible, and she collapsed backward again, lying motionless on the cold dirt floor. The camera continued to record the silence, which now felt far more dense and deadly than before. An unknown amount of time passed. Luna slowly opened her eyes. The first thing she felt was an excruciating pain all over her body, especially in her chest, which felt like it had just been stabbed. Her head was spinning, and the smell of damp earth filled her senses. With what little strength she had, she tried to sit up. Her gaze fell on the camera lying not far from her, still on, its indicator light blinking weakly. She couldn't remember what happened after she felt the pain in her chest. Her memory was a blank. However, her instincts screamed that she had to get out of that place immediately. Without daring to look at the footage on her camera, she grabbed it and, stumbling, got to her feet. Every step out of that cursed building felt like lifting a ton of weight. The journey out of the villa complex became a confusing labyrinth. The path she had taken earlier seemed to have changed. Several times she felt like she was just going in circles. The trees around her seemed to close in, and strange noises returned from the depths of the forest. No longer clear sounds, but whispers on the wind that seemed to mock her. With God's help, after what felt like an eternity, she finally found the main gate. She had never felt so relieved just by the sight of an asphalt road. She ran to her car, her heart still pounding. But the terror wasn't over. Her car wouldn't start. She tried again and again, but all she heard was the weak sound of the starter. Just as she was about to give up, the engine suddenly roared to life. Without wasting a moment, she floored it. As she drove away from the villa, she glanced in the rearview mirror. Among the trees near the villa gate, she caught a glimpse of a tall, large black silhouette standing still, as if seeing her off. Luna kept driving without stopping, leaving the village and the forest behind her. She was safe. Her physical body had managed to escape the villa, but she knew a part of her soul might have been left behind. And something else, something from that villa might now have come home with her. The scraping sound stopped abruptly. Luna held her breath, her ears straining to catch the smallest noise. Silence. The silence itself was more terrifying. With her heart feeling like it would leap out of her chest, she grabbed her phone from the nightstand, turned on its flashlight, and stepped out of her room. She walked very slowly, each creak of the floor beneath her feet sounding like an explosion in the quiet. The flashlight beam from her phone swept across the dimly lit living room. The sofa, the coffee table, the TV stand, everything looked normal. Nothing was out of place. She walked toward the source of the sound, near the balcony door. That's when she saw it. A long, deep scratch marred her shiny wooden parquet floor. The scratch looked as if it had been made by a very heavy, rough object, starting near the balcony door and ending in the middle of the room. There was nothing there that could have caused such damage. From that night on, the terror was no longer subtle. The tall, black shadow she had seen in her car's rearview mirror now frequently appeared in the corner of her eye. When she was watching TV, the figure would stand in her bedroom doorway. When she was cooking in the kitchen, it would stand at the end of the hall. Every time Luna turned to look at it clearly, the figure would vanish, leaving only a piercing chill in the air. Luna grew thinner, the dark circles under her eyes more pronounced. She lived in constant fear in her own home. The climax occurred one afternoon. After returning from work exhausted, she decided to take a hot shower, hoping to relax her tense muscles and mind. Hot steam filled the entire bathroom, fogging up the large mirror above the sink. After she finished, she wrapped a towel around her body and stepped out of the shower stall. She wiped a part of the fogged-up mirror with her palm to see her reflection. However, what she saw was not just her own pale face. On the part of the mirror she had cleared, a word was written. The word was formed from the condensation that hadn't been wiped away, as if written by an unseen finger from the other side of the mirror. One word that made her tremble violently. The word was, return. Luna screamed and staggered backward, away from the mirror as if its surface could burn her. She slipped on the wet floor and fell, her body shaking uncontrollably. The word echoed in her head. Return. What was she supposed to return? She hadn't taken anything from the villa except the video footage she hadn't even dared to watch. That night, Luna didn't sleep at all. She just sat in the corner of her room, hugging her knees with all the lights on, until the dawn call to prayer was heard. The next morning, a Monday, with swollen eyes and a pale face, she knew she couldn't face this alone anymore. Her skepticism had been shattered, replaced by desperation. She remembered a conversation with a senior colleague a few months ago about spiritual places in Surabaya. She gathered the courage to call her colleague, vaguely explaining her problem, only mentioning she needed spiritual help. Her colleague unhesitatingly recommended one name, an elderly Kyai in the religious area of Ampel known for his profound knowledge. His name was Kyai Boss. That very afternoon, Luna steeled herself to go there. She drove to North Surabaya, entering the bustling and historic Ampel area. The atmosphere was a stark contrast to the modern life of the city center. Narrow alleys, the scent of Middle Eastern perfumes, and the faint echo of prayers from the mosque minaret. After asking a few locals, she finally found a simple house in a small alley. With a pounding heart, she knocked on the old wooden door. A young student, Santrai, opened it and led her into a small, cool and quiet living room. Soon, an old man with a serene face, a long white beard, and a turban on his head came out to meet her. It was Kyai Boss. He sat before Luna, looking at her with eyes that were sharp yet calming. Luna tried to open her mouth to tell him everything she had experienced, from the villa in Malang to the writing on her mirror. But after only a few words escaped her trembling lips, Kyai Boss gently raised his palm, asking her to stop. The Kyai closed his eyes for a moment. The silence felt heavy. When he opened his eyes again, he looked straight at Luna with a very serious expression. "There is no need to tell me, child," Kyai Boss said in a low but firm voice. "It is already here." standing right behind your left shoulder. Its energy is dark, dense, and full of anger. Hearing Kya Boss's words, Luna's entire body went limp. She desperately wanted to look back, but an immense fear paralyzed her. Her back felt cold, and she could swear she felt a warm breath on the nape of her neck. She could only look at the Kya with pleading eyes. Kya Boss appeared calm. He began to recite prayers in a very low voice, almost a mumble. Strangely, the atmosphere in the room slowly began to feel lighter. The feeling of being threatened, which had been so strong, now subsided a little. "Do not show your fear, child. That is what gives it strength," said Kya Boss, opening his eyes. "Now tell me, what were you doing in an old building on a mountainside about a week ago?" Luna was shocked. How could the Kya know? In a faltering voice, she told him everything. About the back building with its heavy aura. About the anger that possessed her until she kicked a rock and shouted a challenge. She also recounted how she felt the pain in her chest, and how her memory went blank until she regained consciousness. Kya Boss nodded slowly, his face growing more serious. "I thought so," he muttered. "The creature following you is not a restless spirit from the villa. The spirits there are weak and cannot leave their territory. What you are facing is far older, stronger, and more dangerous. It is a Jinni guardian of that forest region," the Kya continued. "The place you entered, that old building, has become its palace. When you entered with the intent to challenge, shouting and showing anger, you were seen as declaring war on it. You insulted it in its own domain." Luna listened with bated breath. The pain in your chest and your lost memory, that was the moment it managed to enter and mark you. Created an energy bond with you. That is why it could follow you to Surabaya. And the writing on the mirror, "Return," that wasn't a request. It was a command for you to return to its territory, where it could easily take all of your life energy as payment for the insult you committed. Luna covered her mouth with her hand, unable to hold back a sob. "This bond must be broken, child. Not just cast out," Kya Boss said in a firm tone. "If not, it will follow you for the rest of your life, slowly gnawing at your soul until there is nothing left." Course, here is the English translation. "Tonight," said Kya Boss, breaking the agonizing silence. "We must do it tonight. It coincides with the night of Selesa Klywan, when the gate between the two worlds is at its weakest. But I need your full strength and complete submission, child. You must not have a single doubt. If you doubt, it will win." Luna nodded in surrender. Her fear was still there, but now it was mixed with a steely determination. She didn't want to live like this forever. She would fight back. The rest of the day was spent at Kya Boss's house, under his guidance. She was asked to continually perform ablution, wudu, recite remembrances, zikr, and pray for protection from the Almighty, Allah SWT. Meanwhile, the Kya and some of his students prepared a special room at the back of the house. When night fell, Luna was led into the room. It was empty, except for a pandan mat in the center. In each corner of the room was a bowl of prayer-infused water and a handful of coarse salt. The only light came from a few small candles whose flames danced on the walls. Kya Boss asked her to sit cross-legged on the mat, while he sat facing her. "Close your eyes. Whatever happens, do not open them. Keep reciting zikr in your heart," the Kya commanded. Luna closed her eyes. Kya Boss began to chant holy verses with a deep, authoritative voice. First, the atmosphere was calm. But slowly, the air in the room grew heavier and colder. So cold. Luna felt the pressure in her chest again. The candles around them suddenly extinguished all at once, plunging the room into darkness. A strong wind howled inside the sealed room. Luna heard whispers in her ears. The sound of laughter, of crying, and the deep, threatening voice of the Jinni. It tried to invade Luna's mind, showing her horrific images from Villa Bromo. The pain in her chest intensified, sharp and torturous. She almost gave up and opened her eyes. At that very moment, Kya Boss's recitation reached its peak. He shouted Allahu Akbar, with a thunderous voice, then threw the water from the bowl towards Luna. Simultaneously, Luna felt a sensation as if something was being forcefully pulled from her body. The process was so painful it felt like a part of herself was being torn away. She screamed as loud as she could, not just from her mouth, but from deep within her soul. Then everything went dark. When Luna opened her eyes, the first thing she saw was the light of dawn filtering through a crack in the window. She was still in the ritual room, lying on the mat. Her body felt incredibly weak, but the heavy burden that had been crushing her chest was gone. The air around her felt light and clean. For the first time in weeks, she felt truly alone in her own being, and the feeling was so peaceful. Kya Boss sat not far from her, reciting zikr with prayer beads in his hand. He smiled serenely when he saw Luna was awake. "Alhamdulillah. It is all over, child," said the Kya. "The bond has been broken with Allah's permission. It has returned to its realm and will not be able to bother you again." Luna cried silently, this time not from fear, but from overwhelming gratitude. Kya Boss then gave her some advice. "Child, the world we cannot see is real. They live alongside us. Always guard your manners and etiquette wherever you are. Do not be arrogant, do not be challenging, and do not enter a place without permission or praying for protection. This experience of yours is a very expensive lesson on the importance of humility." Luna's story reminds us of Allah's words in the Quran, specifically in Surah An-Nas, which teaches us to always seek protection. Kul a'udzu birabbinas, malikinnas, ilahinnas, min sharril waswasil khannas, alladzi yuwaswisu fi shudurin nas, minal jinnati wan nas, which means, say, I seek refuge in the Lord of mankind, the sovereign of mankind, the God of mankind, from the evil of the whisperer who withdraws, who whispers into the breasts of mankind, from among the jinn and mankind. The lesson from this story is that every step we take in this world should be accompanied by prayer and the awareness that we do not live alone. Arrogance and the intention to challenge the unseen often become doorways for evils we do not desire. Always seek protection from the Creator, for He is the best protector from all evils, both seen and unseen.